You go to the garden center every spring, spend money on vegetables and herbs, plant everything, work hard all summer, and then winter comes and it all dies. And next spring, you do it all over again. That cycle never ends unless you change the plants you are growing. Most gardeners have no idea just how many edible plants are actually perennials. Plants that you put in the ground once, take care of properly, and then harvest from year after year for the next 10, 20, even 50 years. No replanting, no starting over, no buying the same thing again every spring. You set it up once and it pays you back for the rest of your life. These 13 perennial food plants, vegetables, fruits, berries, and herbs, are the most productive and most reliable edibles you can put in the ground. Some of them will outlive you. Every single one of them will change how you think about your garden permanently. Let's get into it. 1. Asparagus, Asparagus officinalis. There is a reason experienced gardeners treat asparagus like a long-term investment, because that is exactly what it is. A properly established asparagus bed will produce tender, fresh spears every spring for 20 to 30 years. Some well-maintained beds have been harvesting for over 50 years from the same crowns. No vegetable in the home garden delivers a longer return on a single planting. Here is the truth most gardeners are not told up front. Asparagus demands patience before it delivers. You do not harvest in year 1. In year 2, you take only a light cutting of 2 to 3 weeks. In year 3, you harvest for 4 to 6 weeks. By year 4, you have a full harvest window of 6 to 8 weeks every spring, and the plant is barely getting started. That patience is the entire investment. Gardeners who rush it and harvest too early in year 1 or 2 set the bed back permanently and never get the full production the plant is capable of. Plant asparagus crowns, not seeds, to cut 1 full year off the waiting period. Choose a permanent location at the edge of your garden where the bed will not be disturbed, because once asparagus is established, tilling around it destroys the shallow, wide-spreading root system and sets the plant back years. Soil pH between 6.5 and 7.5, full sun, and excellent drainage are the 3 non-negotiable requirements. Sandy, loamy soil that drains freely is ideal. Heavy clay that holds water will rot the crowns. Male varieties like Jersey Knight and Jersey Giant produce significantly more spears than older mixed varieties because they do not spend energy producing seeds. These are the varieties to look for. Dig your planting trench 12 to 18 inches deep, mound soil down the center, drape the crowns over the mound with roots spread evenly, cover with 2 to 3 inches of soil, and then backfill gradually as the shoots grow over the first season. Feed with a balanced fertilizer after harvest each year. Let the ferns grow all summer to recharge the roots, and cut everything back to the ground only after the first hard frost. USDA Zones 3 through 8. At peak production from year 4 onward, a 20-foot bed will yield 20 to 25 pounds of spears per season. The math on that over 20 years compared to buying asparagus at the grocery store is staggering. 2. Rhubarb rabarbarum. If asparagus is the king of perennial vegetables, rhubarb is the queen, and between the two of them, they can give you fresh food out of the garden every spring before most other plants have even woken up. Rhubarb is one of the earliest producers in the entire garden, pushing up bold crimson stalks in late March and April when almost nothing else is growing. A single well-established plant can produce 8 to 10 pounds of stalks per year, and it will do so reliably for 10 to 20 years or more. There is one absolute rule with rhubarb that must be stated clearly: never eat the leaves. They contain toxic levels of oxalic acid. Cut them off as soon as you harvest the stalks and discard them. The stalks are completely safe and are one of the most versatile tart ingredients in the kitchen, exceptional in pies, crumbles, jams, chutneys, sauces, and shrubs. Plant rhubarb from divisions or crowns in spring or early fall. Give it a space at least 3 feet by 3 feet because mature plants get large and wide. It thrives in full sun with rich, deeply cultivated soil that stays consistently moist but drains well. Mix generous amounts of aged compost or well-rotted manure into the planting hole before you put the crown in. Feed annually in early spring with a balanced fertilizer and top dress with compost each fall. Do not harvest anything in the first year. Let the plant put all its energy into root establishment. In year 2, take only a few stalks. By year 3, you have a full harvest. Harvest stalks by gripping firmly at the base and pulling with a slight twist rather than cutting, which stimulates the plant to produce replacement shoots. Stop harvesting by RLY summer to let the plant recharge for the following year. Remove any flower stalks the moment they appear. Once a rhubarb plant bolts, it stops putting energy into stalk production, and the harvest quality drops significantly. Every 4 to 5 years, dig and divide the crown in early spring. Each division becomes a completely new plant. One original plant becomes 5. 5 become 25. You will never need to buy rhubarb again. USDA zones 3 through 8, full sun, rich, moist, well-drained soil. 3 strawberries, Fragaria ex ananassa. Strawberries are the most universally grown fruit in the home garden, but most gardeners are getting a fraction of the yield they could be getting because they do not understand the difference between the 3 types, and they do not manage the runner system properly. June-bearing strawberries produce one enormous flush of fruit in late spring. Big, flavorful berries over 2 to 3 weeks, ideal for jam making and freezing in bulk. Everbearing varieties produce 2 smaller crops, one in late spring and one in early fall. Day-neutral varieties, the newest development in strawberry breeding, produce a continuous stream of berries from spring all the way through fall as long as temperatures stay between 35 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. For a backyard garden where fresh eating is the goal, day-neutral varieties like Albion, Seascape, or Evie 2 give you the longest harvest window. Strawberries grow in USDA zones 3 through 10, making them one of the most geographically versatile fruits available. Plant in full sun, at least 8 hours per day, in well-drained, slightly acidic soil with a pH between 5.5 and 6.5. Raised beds work exceptionally well for strawberries because they provide both the drainage the plants demand and the ability to control soil pH with precision. Mulch heavily around plants with straw to retain moisture, suppress weeds, keep the fruit clean, and protect the crowns from freeze damage in winter. The runner management system is what separates a productive strawberry bed from a chaotic, low-yielding one. Strawberry plants send out horizontal stems called runners, and each runner produces a daughter plant. Allow each mother plant to root 2 to 3 daughter plants in the first season. Pin them to the soil with a U-shaped wire and cut the runner once they have rooted. Remove all other runners ruthlessly. This keeps the bed from becoming overcrowded, maintains airflow to prevent disease, and ensures each plant has the space and resources to produce maximum fruit. Renovate the bed every year immediately after the June harvest by mowing the foliage off, thinning plants to 8 to 10 inches apart, fertilizing with a balanced fertilizer, and watering deeply. This renovation cycle resets the plants and drives strong new growth that produces the best fruit the following season. Replace the entire bed every 3 to 4 years as production naturally declines with age. 4. Raspberries Rubus idius. Raspberries are one of the most productive fruits you can grow per square foot of garden space. A well-managed 10-foot row of raspberries will produce 18 to 27 pounds of fruit per season. They will do that reliably for 10 to 15 years from a single planting. And unlike almost every other fruit crop, raspberries require no spray program, no complicated trellising system, and no grafting knowledge. They are genuinely accessible for gardeners at every skill level. Understanding the cane biology is the key to getting the most out of raspberries. Raspberry roots are perennial, they live for the full life of the plant, but the canes are biennial, meaning each individual cane lives for exactly 2 years. In year 1, a cane is called a primicane. It is green, vegetative, and grows vigorously but produces no fruit. In year 2, That same cane becomes a floricane. It flowers, fruits, and then dies. Understanding this 2-year cycle tells you exactly which canes to cut and when, and getting this right doubles your yield compared to gardeners who never learn it. Summer-bearing raspberries produce one massive crop on second-year floricans in June and July. After those canes fruit, cut them all the way to the ground immediately. Do not leave stumps, which become breeding grounds for cane borers and fungal diseases. Leave all the green first-year primicanes standing to become next year's fruiting wood. Everbearing raspberries, also called fall-bearing, produce a fall crop on the tips of current-year canes, and then a second summer crop on the lower portions of those same canes the following year. The simplest management for everbearing types is to cut every cane to the ground in late winter before growth begins, sacrifice the summer crop entirely, and get one large, clean fall harvest that is typically heavier than the two-crop system. USDA zones 3 through 9 depending on variety. Heritage is the most reliable ever-bearing red variety for American gardens. Caroline offers exceptional flavor with strong disease resistance. Anne is the gold standard for yellow raspberries. Full sun, well-drained soil, consistent moisture, and a simple trellis of 2 wires strung between posts at 2 feet and 4 feet high. That is the entire setup. Plant 3 to 4 inches deep, 18 to 24 inches apart in rows at least 6 feet wide for access. 5 blueberries, Vaccinium corymbosum. Blueberries might be the single best long-term investment in the entire edible garden. A well-maintained blueberry bush can live and produce for 50 years or more. Oregon State University Extension research confirms that all blueberry types, when properly cared for, can bear fruit for more than half a century. That is a plant you put in the ground today, and your grandchildren will still be harvesting from. The one non-negotiable requirement for blueberries, the one thing that determines success or failure completely, is soil acidity. Blueberries must have a soil pH between 4.5 and 5.5. Most garden soil sits between 6 and 7, which is too alkaline for blueberries to absorb the nutrients they need. Plant blueberries in soil that has not been acidified, and the leaves will yellow, growth will stall, and the plants will slowly decline no matter how well you water and fertilize. Test your soil pH before planting. Amend with granular sulfur at least 3 months before planting if the pH is above 5. Incorporate peat moss or acidic compost into the planting hole. Maintain pH with annual applications of sulfur and fertilize exclusively with fertilizers formulated for acid-loving plants. Always plant at least 2 varieties with overlapping bloom times for cross-pollination. A single variety planted alone will produce frustratingly little fruit. 2 compatible varieties planted together will yield dramatically more. Highbush varieties like Bluecrop, Jersey, and Duke are the workhorses for northern gardens in zones 4 through 7. Rabbiti varieties extend blueberry growing into the deep south and perform well in zones 7 through 9. Highbush blueberries typically require 6 to 8 years to reach full production, at which point a single mature plant can yield up to 15 pounds of fruit per year. Prune annually in late winter by removing 1 to 2 of the oldest canes, the thick, dark, low-producing ones, and retaining 6 to 8 vigorous upright canes aged 1 to 5 years. Never top or hedge blueberries. They fruit on the lateral buds of 1 to 3-year-old wood, and topping destroys precisely the growth that carries next year's crop. Full sun, well-drained acidic soil, consistent moisture, and a 3 to 4 inch layer of pine bark or wood chip mulch kept away from the crown. That mulch layer is not optional. It conserves moisture, insulates roots, and slowly acidifies the soil as it breaks down. Get this plant established correctly in the first 2 years, and it will outlast every other plant in your garden. 6. Globe artichoke, Cynara scalamus. Most American gardeners associate artichokes with California produce sections and have never considered growing them at home. That is a significant missed opportunity, because a single artichoke plant in a warm garden will produce 20 to 30 edible buds per year. The plants are genuinely striking as landscape specimens, growing 4 to 6 feet tall with architectural silver-green foliage. And in mild climates, they will do this reliably for 5 to 6 years from a single planting. Artichokes are the immature flower buds of a large, thistle-like perennial, and the window for harvest is critical. Pick buds when they are still tightly closed, firm, and deep green, typically 2 to 4 inches in diameter for side buds, 4 to 5 inches for the main terminal bud. Once the bracts begin to open and the purple flower starts emerging, the bud becomes tough, fibrous, and inedible within days. Check plants every 2 to 3 days during harvest season and cut buds with 2 to 3 inches of stem attached. Each cut stimulates the plant to produce replacement buds on side shoots, extending the harvest window considerably. In USDA zones 7 through 11, artichokes grow as true perennials, dying back in winter and re-emerging from the crown each spring. In colder zones 6 and below, they can be grown as annuals started from seed indoors 8 to 10 weeks before the last frost, or grown in large containers that are brought indoors before the first freeze. The key for artichokes in borderline zones is heavy winter mulching. Pile 8 to 12 inches of straw or shredded leaves over the crown after the first hard frost to insulate the roots from freeze damage. Plant in full sun in deep, rich, well-drained soil with a generous incorporation of compost. Feed regularly with a nitrogen-rich fertilizer during the growing season. Artichokes are heavy feeders and respond dramatically to good nutrition with dramatically larger and more numerous buds. Water consistently and deeply. Artichokes do not tolerate drought during bud development, and dry conditions lead to tough, bitter buds. Green Globe is the standard variety for American gardens. Imperial Star is a superior choice for gardeners in northern zones who want to grow artichokes as annuals from seed, as it produces a strong first-year crop without the vernalization cold treatment that most perennial varieties require. 7. Horseradish, Armoracia rusticana. Anyone who has ever tasted freshly grated horseradish, the real thing, straight from the root, and then gone back to the bottled grocery store version, has had the experience of never wanting to go back. Homegrown horseradish is in a completely different category. The heat is brighter, more complex, and far more intense, and the plant is one of the most effortlessly productive perennials in the entire garden. Horseradish grows in USDA zones 3 through 9. It will grow in zones 10 and 11 as well, but produces lower quality roots in climates that stay warm year-round, because it needs a genuine cold winter to develop the best flavor and root density. Plant root cuttings sections of root 2 to 3 inches long with a clean, flat top cut and an angled bottom cut, in early spring, 6 to 8 inches deep, angled at 45 degrees with the flat top facing up. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart. The angled planting position is important. It encourages a single dominant root to develop rather than a mass of small, forked roots that are difficult to clean and grate. Here is the most important thing to understand about horseradish. It is aggressive. It spreads through underground roots, and once established in open soil, it will gradually colonize the surrounding area. The solution is to plant it in a large container sunk into the ground. A 5-gallon bucket with the bottom cut out works perfectly, or in a designated bed with physical barriers on all sides. Contain it from the beginning and you have a productive, well-behaved plant for decades. Ignore containment, and you will spend years pulling horseradish out of places you never intended. Harvest roots in fall after the first hard frost has occurred. Cold temperatures convert starches to sugars and dramatically improve the flavor. Dig carefully with a garden fork, take the large, primary roots, and leave the smaller secondary roots in the ground to regrow next year. Clean immediately, dry briefly, then process into fresh horseradish sauce by grating or blending with white wine vinegar and salt. Fresh homemade horseradish keeps in the refrigerator for 3 to 4 weeks and can be frozen for up to 6 months. The pungency fades quickly once the root is cut and exposed to air, so make it fresh and use it quickly for the most intense flavor. 8. Jerusalem artichoke, Helianthus tuberosus. Despite the name, the Jerusalem artichoke has nothing to do with Jerusalem and is not related to the globe artichoke. It is a native North American perennial sunflower, and what it produces are underground tubers, crisp, nutty, slightly sweet root vegetables that taste like a cross between a water chestnut and a potato, and can be eaten raw, roasted, fried, or made into a velvety soup. Once you have eaten them fresh from the garden, they become one of those vegetables you wonder how you lived without. The plant itself grows 6 to 10 feet tall and produces cheerful yellow sunflower-style blooms in late summer and fall, making it simultaneously one of the most productive edible plants and one of the most ornamental. In USDA zones 2 through 9, this is one of the hardiest and most drought-tolerant food plants you can grow. It tolerates poor soil, partial shade, clay, and conditions that would defeat almost any other vegetable. It does not tolerate waterlogged soil. Good drainage is the one serious requirement. Plant tubers in early spring, 4 to 6 inches deep and 12 to 18 inches apart. Because the plants grow tall and spread aggressively through underground tuber production, site them against a fence, wall, or at the back of a bed where they can act as a windbreak and privacy screen without shading shorter plants. Like horseradish, physical containment is advisable. They will spread into every available space if given the opportunity, and reclaiming a bed from established Jerusalem artichokes requires persistent digging over several seasons. Harvest in fall after the first frost, which dramatically improves the sweetness and flavor just as it does with horseradish. Dig the tubers with a garden fork and brush off the soil. Unlike potatoes, Jerusalem artichoke skins are thin and do not need peeling, scrub clean, and cook or eat raw. Here is the practical detail most growing guides omit. Jerusalem artichokes contain a carbohydrate called inulin, which the human digestive system cannot break down in the small intestine. In large quantities, this can cause significant digestive discomfort. Start with small servings and give your gut time to adapt. The discomfort decreases as your gut microbiome adjusts over several weeks of regular consumption. Leave a generous quantity of tubers in the ground after each harvest, and they will regenerate completely for the following year without any replanting. 9. Chives, Allium sconoprasum. Chives are not glamorous. They are not the plant that generates excitement at the garden center or the one that fills up social media feeds with dramatic harvests. What they are is possibly the most reliable, most productive, and most genuinely useful perennial food plant the average home cook can grow, and they deserve far more credit than they typically receive. Plant chives once in a spot with at least 6 hours of sun and reasonable soil drainage, and they will be there producing for you every single season for the rest of your gardening life. USDA zones 3 through 9. They tolerate a wide range of soil conditions, survive drought, bounce back from neglect, handle partial shade better than most herbs, and regrow aggressively after every harvest. There is essentially no perennial herb that demands less and delivers more consistently. The edible parts are the hollow, grass-like leaves and the flowers. Leaves can be harvested as soon as they are 6 inches tall by cutting the entire clump back to within 2 inches of the ground with a sharp pair of kitchen shears. Do not pick individual leaves, cut the whole clump back. Within 2 weeks, a fresh flush of new growth emerges from the base. You can repeat this harvest cycle 4 to 5 times per growing season. The more you cut, the more it produces. Gardeners who rarely harvest chives end up with thick, hollow stems that get tough and lose their delicate onion flavor. Regular cutting is both the harvest and the maintenance. The flowers are edible and delicious, mild onion flavor with a slightly sweet edge, and exceptional scattered over salads, deviled eggs, cold pasta dishes, and summer soups. More importantly, if you allow the flowers to go to seed, chives will self-sow prolifically and colonize a widening area of your garden. This is either an asset or a problem depending on your perspective. Cut the flower heads before seeds form if you want to contain the planting. Allow them to seed if you want to expand. Divide clumps every 3 to 4 years in spring or fall. Each division can be replanted in a new spot or shared with neighbors. One original plant quietly becomes a permanent feature of every corner of your garden. 10. Garlic Allium sativum perennial method. Most gardeners grow garlic as an annual plant in fall, harvest in summer, done. And that is a perfectly good way to grow it. But what most gardeners have never tried is the perennial method, and it changes the relationship with this plant entirely. In the perennial method, you plant garlic once and never dig the entire bed. Each fall, you harvest only the largest, most fully developed heads, the ones with well-formed, paper-covered cloves. The smaller, less developed bulbs stay in the ground. They overwinter in place, develop through the following growing season, and produce a new crop of heads the following summer. You harvest the best, leave the rest, and the bed perpetually regenerates itself. Garlic can be grown reliably as a true perennial in USDA zones 3 through 9, using this method. Whether grown as an annual or perennial, the quality difference between homegrown garlic and commercial garlic is significant enough that it changes cooking. Commercial garlic is typically harvested months before it reaches grocery shelves, stored in controlled atmospheres, and often irradiated to prevent sprouting. Homegrown garlic harvested at peak ripeness and cured properly has flavor depth that commercially available garlic simply cannot match. Plant in fall, 4 to 6 weeks before the ground freezes, in the sunniest location available with well-drained, fertile soil and a pH of 6 to 7. Plant individual cloves 2 to 3 inches deep and 6 inches apart with the pointed end facing up. Mulch heavily with straw after planting 3 to 4 inches to moderate soil temperature through winter and suppress early spring weeds. Remove the mulch when shoots emerge in spring. In late spring, hardneck garlic varieties will send up a spiral stem called a scape. Cut scapes when they have completed one full curl. Scapes are delicious in stir-fries and pesto, and more importantly, removing them redirects the plant's energy from seed production into bulb development, significantly increasing final bulb size. Harvest when the lower 3 to 4 leaves have browned, but the upper 5 to 6 are still green. Each leaf corresponds to a wrapper layer on the bulb. Harvest too early and the head is underdeveloped. Harvest too late and the wrappers disintegrate, reducing storage life dramatically. Cure harvested bulbs by hanging them in bundles or spreading on screens in a warm, dry, well-ventilated space for 3 to 4 weeks before storage. Eating. Hardneck varieties, rocambole, purple stripe, and porcelain types have the most complex flavor and are the best choice for northern gardens in zones 3 through 6. Softneck varieties store longer, up to 12 months, and are the better choice for warmer zones 7 through 9. 11. Sorrel Rumex acetosa. Sorrel is the best-kept secret in the perennial food garden, and the gardeners who grow it are fiercely loyal to it in a way that hints at exactly how useful it is. It is one of the first edible plants out of the ground in late winter, sometimes pushing up harvestable leaves in late February or early March when the rest of the garden is still frozen solid. In USDA zones 5 through 9, it grows as a true evergreen perennial in mild winters, meaning you can harvest fresh leaves in January when no other food plant in the garden is producing anything at all. The flavor is bracingly tart, bright, lemony, and acidic with an edge that is difficult to describe to someone who has never tasted it. That acidity is the entire point. A small handful of sorrel leaves transforms a simple green salad into something vivid. Blended into a butter sauce, it becomes one of the great classic French preparations for fish. Stirred into scrambled eggs in the last minute of cooking, it creates something extraordinary. It makes lentil soup memorable, potato soup remarkable, and plain goat cheese into a spread people will ask about. Plant sorrel from seed or division in spring or fall in partially shaded to full sun locations. It actually performs well in a spot that gets afternoon shade during the hottest months, which most food plants cannot tolerate. Well-drained soil with reasonable fertility, it is not demanding. USDA zones 5 through 9. Space plants 12 inches apart. Harvest outer leaves as soon as the plant has 6 to 8 leaves on it, always leaving the central growing point intact. The plant will continuously push new leaves from the center for the entire growing season. The one maintenance task that matters: remove flower stalks immediately the moment they appear. Once sorrel bolts and sets seed, the leaves become smaller, tougher, and less flavorful. Cutting out the flower stalk resets the plant immediately back to leaf production. Do this consistently, and a single sorrel plant will give you fresh leaves for 6 to 8 months of the year. Divide clumps every 3 to 4 years to keep production vigorous. French sorrel, Rhubarb scudatus, is a slightly smaller and more refined version with superior flavor, worth seeking out if you can find it at a specialty nursery or online. 12. Lovage Levisticum officinale. If you have never grown lovage, the first time you crush one of its leaves and smell it, you will immediately understand why experienced gardeners are so devoted to this plant. The scent is deep, complex celery with a savory, almost meat-like richness underneath it that no other herb in the garden replicates. It tastes exactly like that smell, intensely of celery and parsley, but bolder and more complex than either. A single leaf of lovage, finely chopped, adds what a whole bunch of celery only hints at. The plant grows large, 4 to 6 feet tall at maturity with lush, deeply cut, dark green leaves on hollow celery-like stems, and it is striking enough to anchor a large bed as a structural plant that also happens to feed you throughout the growing season. USDA zones 3 through 8. Full sun to light shade. Well-drained, moderately fertile soil. Once established, it is exceptionally drought-tolerant and requires almost no maintenance beyond an annual top dressing of compost in spring. Use the leaves fresh, dried, or frozen in soups, stews, stocks, potato dishes, salads, and egg dishes. The hollow stems can be used exactly like celery in cooking or used as drinking straws in tomato juice and Bloody Mary cocktails, which is either charming or pretentious depending on your personality. The seeds, which appear on large, flat umbels in late summer, are used as a spice with an intense, warm celery seed flavor, and are excellent in bread, crackers, and pickles. Even the roots are edible, cooked like a root vegetable in soups or grated raw into salads. Start from seed indoors 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost, or purchase young plants from a specialty herb nursery. Germination is slow, and the seeds must be fresh to germinate reliably. Lovage seed loses viability quickly, so do not use seed more than 1 year old. Once established in the second year, the plant requires almost nothing from you. It dies back completely to the ground each winter and re-emerges in early spring as one of the first herbs out of the ground, weeks before most other garden plants have stirred. Divide mature clumps in early spring every 4 to 5 years to keep production vigorous. 13. Thyme Thymus vulgaris. Thyme closes this list not because it is the most dramatic plant on it, but because it might be the most consistently, daily useful one. It is in the kitchen more than any other herb on this entire list. It goes into almost everything savory: roasted chicken, lamb, fish, soups, stews, sauces, compound butters, marinades, roasted vegetables, and bread. It is one of the foundational herbs of French cuisine for a reason that experienced cooks understand instinctively. It enhances other flavors while contributing its own, and there is almost no savory dish it makes worse. Common thyme, Thymus vulgaris, grows in USDA zones 4 through 9 as a small, woody, semi-evergreen subshrub that reaches 12 to 15 inches tall and wide. In zones 5 and warmer, it holds its leaves through mild winters and can often be harvested even in December and January on mild days. In colder zones, it dies back significantly but re-emerges reliably in spring. Plant in the sunniest, best-drained spot in your garden. Thyme is native to the rocky, sun-drenched hillsides of the Mediterranean, and it carries those requirements with it. It will tolerate drought that kills most herbs. It will bloom happily in poor, gritty, rocky soil that has almost no fertility. What it will not tolerate is wet roots in winter or heavy, waterlogged soil at any time of year. If your drainage is poor, plant thyme in a raised bed or container and it will thrive indefinitely. Harvest by snipping stems with sharp scissors, taking no more than 1/3 of the plant at any one cutting. The more you harvest, the more the plant branches and bushes out. Neglected thyme that is never harvested becomes a leggy, woody plant with poor leaf coverage and diminished fragrance. Regular harvesting is both how you use the plant and how you maintain it. After 2 to 3 years, cut the entire plant back by half in early spring before new growth begins. This hard pruning prevents the center from going completely woody and keeps the plant producing fresh, highly aromatic growth season after season. French thyme is the most refined culinary selection with the richest, most complex flavor. Lemon thyme, Thymus ex citriodorus, is worth growing alongside it for its bright citrus note that is exceptional with fish and chicken. Both are true perennials, both come back year after year, and both belong in any serious kitchen garden. There they are: asparagus, rhubarb, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, globe artichoke, horseradish, Jerusalem artichoke, chives, garlic, sorrel, lovage, and thyme. 13 plants that, established correctly over the next 2 seasons, will produce fresh food out of your garden year after year for decades without requiring you to start from scratch every single spring. Some of these plants will still be feeding your family 15 years from now. Some of them, the blueberries, the asparagus, the thyme, could genuinely outlive you. That is not a metaphor. That is just the biology of perennial plants, working in your favor for once instead of against you. The annuals have their place, but a garden built on perennials is a garden that compounds. Every year it gets more established, more productive, and more valuable while requiring less effort from you, not more. That is the trade you are making when you plant these, not next year's harvest. A generation of harvests. Drop your zone and your state in the comments and tell me which one you are planting first. I read every single one.